we're moving on down the line to our next summer blockbuster of this year. Which is Jurassic World, which is apparently a very highly anticipated, given how many people were in there tonight. That's not a normal number for Thursday night in this area.
No, it really isn't.
But I wasn't sure how this was going to do in comparison to like the Avengers and Furious 7 and stuff like that. But it'll probably do okay for itself, especially being a crowd pleaser, it seems. I guess. And we introduce a few new characters here. I was under the impression at least one person was returning, but no, we don't get anybody back. The closest we get to that is the Hammond name being seen in the building, but...
Well, B.D. Wong's in the movie. That's from the original.
Was he?
Yeah. I definitely remember that.
It's been a couple of years, but we'll get back to it soon enough.
Go ahead.
We are starting off with a couple of kids, which obviously is, you know, the way we go in these movies. And I know that one kid has been the annoying kid in another movie.
I'll get to it, don't worry.
But, yes. And there's pretty much nothing you need to know about them. The one kid likes dinosaurs because he has dinosaur posters and one of those viewfinder things, which I didn't know kids still had. And you have the older brother who has the girlfriend. End of character development there. And Judy Greer is shipping them off because she likes to be in big budget movies for about 5 minutes and...
He's from Insidious.
So...
He's Dalton.
Yeah. He's the main kid in Insidious.
Revolutionary Road, Iron Man 3.
That's... Yeah, he's the kid in Iron... Okay.
And World of Worlds.
Okay. So she ships them off to their aunt, Bryce Dallas Howard, who works at Jurassic World, which is where they have basically taken the concept of Jurassic Park and turned it into half a petting zoo and half SeaWorld. Because I do like that little setup where it's, they have to keep doing new things because now the park is open and people have actually been in it without problems. The novelty of dinosaurs has worn off and they're not as exciting. So they have to they have to keep amping up the park, which leads them to make the horrible decision of making a hybrid dinosaur that serves as our antagonist, basically. And we're introduced to everybody's favorite person to fawn over at the moment, Chris Pratt, with his third possible franchise movie now, and probably soon to be four, but we won't even go into that yet. There was an interesting theory that I was hearing going into this. I have no idea if there's anything supporting it. That Chris Pratt's character is the adult version of the kid at the beginning of the first movie that Sam Neill scares off. That's there when they're doing their...
Sounds logical.
I don't recall anything in this movie that would contradict that, I guess. So if you want to run with it, you probably can. Unless there's a really, really small detail in there that I missed, which is possible. Now, the thing about it is, I know this is like lynch mob type stuff, but I'm just not on this Chris Pratt train. I don't really understand his appeal. I mean, I kind of understand his appeal, but I don't, feel it for myself. And this character that he's playing is doing this no favors anyway, because he's basically trying to do... he's kind of trying to do a new Harrison Ford kind of thing,
yeah.
I guess. Which is not... even when he's doing the charming, mostly comedic, but also action hero thing like he did in Guardians of the Galaxy, I wasn't really... He's just not somebody that I'm, appeals to me. And it's really not better when he's trying to do more of the action hero thing, like, straight. There's not... I mean, he's got some, like, one-liner bullshit in there, but for the most part, it's like he's trying to play a straight, stoic hero. And this just is not really... This doesn't really do anything for me, so... with that in mind, and it was only made worse by the fact that there's a scene between Bryce Dallas Howard and Irfan Khan where they're building up Pratt's character. He's really built up way more than he should be. Because really the only thing that he does is he comes in and he knows, like, he knows the animals and he knows how to shoot, but in between that, he's just there to stoically stand there and state the obvious. That's, like, the entire middle of the movie, that's all he does. And then... So anyway, we're building him up in this scene, and Irfan Khan says his name, and Bryce Dallas Howard has this reaction where she looks down and she smiles, and then she says, "I know him." And immediately you know that this means there's some romantic past, which means there's going to be little flirtatious banter back and forth. And they're going to do their whole thing that's eventually going to lead to the big romantic kiss at the big, you know, reaching climax thing. And, of the movie, not... No, the original doesn't get that far in the movie. But, I think you get what I meant. Now, with all that in there, already tainting this, and the fact that the only other characters we have are... They go back and forth here, because they're not in a group for most of the movie. They're in several places. So they're trying to build character that way, and then we have these two kids, and like I said, they give those, like, they give them, like, those two character traits. One loves dinosaurs and one has a girlfriend. That's it. A girlfriend he apparently forgets about after a while, because he's acting like it's the end of the world when they're leaving, but then once they're at the park, there's one scene where he's looking at her on his phone, and then she's never mentioned again, and there's a scene later where he's looking at a group of, like, 3 girls. So, there's that. And then they try to throw in this big dramatic scene where I guess the story is that the parents are getting a divorce, and the younger kid's real broken up about it. But that's the only time they touch on that, and even in that one scene, it's just really difficult to give a shit. So, but that's not what people go to this movie for. Yes, there are a shitload of dinosaurs and a shitload of action. I think that's going to please a lot of people, because it is really well handled. You question it because the director is Colin Trevorrow, who did Safety Not Guaranteed.
Yes.
Which is an indie movie with Aubrey Plaza and Mark Duplass about an alleged time machine. I think this is his only movie apart from that. Is that...
He's had to have done something else.
You would think so. You would think it would not just be one indie movie that gets him this gig, but, you know, Hollywood's done weirder things.
Actually...
Yeah.
That's how he got the role.
Okay.
He had a TV movie, a documentary, and a short, and then Safety Not Guaranteed.
Now, the action is really well shot, and there are some cool things in there. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, the cool scenes just kind of feel like scenes that are being slightly redone from the first one. Which, I know it's probably like an homage thing, that was the idea, but it's just, you know... It is what it is. But there are some times where it kind of feels... It didn't really ring true for me throughout. Because there are moments that feel really, really huge. The big climax at the end is really, really gigantic.
Grand.
Yeah. But there are also a lot of moments that it feels more like it's trying to imitate a blockbuster as opposed to actually being one. And... Every now and then, for the most part, the effects are really good, but there are some of those dodgy moments in there where there's an obvious green screen, or there's the opening shot when the claws come out of the egg look very animated. So stuff like that is in there, but for the most part, the effects do look really good. Surprisingly, not really on the level of the first movie, which was over 20 years ago. I don't know, but there's... and. On top of that, while I do think the direction here, for the most part, is for a guy who this is basically like the first really big thing that he's done, and it happens to be a movie that's kind of gargantuan. There it is really. There's one particular scene during that big climax at the end where there's not a lot of cutting, which makes the scene work really well and flow really well. But then there are some questionable things like I hate kind of bringing this up because a lot of people that bring it up seem like they're just reaching for something to bitch about, and that's the product placement. I think it's typically a petty thing to get all up in arms about because it's normally something I don't even really notice. But people when they're really, really looking for an argument against a movie, if they get absolutely desperate enough, they will just completely go off on product placement. It's really not that big a deal.
And they were playing up the theme park.
But hold on. That's not the stuff I'm talking about. The thing about it is when you can just make it blend in like that, that's fine. However, one thing where I kind of think the product placement being obvious is the director's fault are the scenes with the cars.
Okay.
Because it's one thing to just kind of put stuff in there, because, you know, that stuff would be in there in real life, like Coke and other drink products and all that stuff like that. But every time we see this car, the movie is shot like a car commercial.
You have the logo right up front.
And the angles that come around.
Yeah, it's true.
And it actually, the movie even takes on like a whole other aesthetic. Like you're watching it on TV. That is when I think you can really complain about product placement. When it looks like you're watching a legit commercial. And not just blending it in the background like it would be. But something else that's good to talk about, this movie has a really good cast, a really diverse cast. Our villain is Vincent D'Onofrio. Vincent D'Onofrio is fantastic. If you don't love Vincent D'Onofrio, you really should not be watching any type of entertainment whatsoever because you don't deserve it. Having said that, the character that he plays, mind you, the character that he plays very well, is the exact villain in this kind of movie. He is the guy who is all about the success of big business at the expense of the safety of human beings. He's that fucking guy again, and there's really nothing different done with him, except that you gotta love Vincent D'Onofrio just in general. So, there's that. I mentioned Irvin Kahn earlier, who's basically I guess he's like overseeing this. B.D. Wong is in there. It's always great to see him. He was the best part of Focus earlier this year, which is great. Jake Johnson is apparently taking the place of Samuel L. Jackson. Jake Johnson, who is a carryover from Safety Not Guaranteed. Just to kind of remind you that Colin Trevorrow made that movie. There's... for the most... I mean, it's not bad or anything. I don't hate it. But for the most part, I wasn't really that into it. Like I said, there are some scenes that stand out, but after a while, I kind of get it with its concept and everything, and I suppose you could argue this about the first movie. It's, you know, the second and third are so panned that there's really no need to try to bring them into defending things with this, but I don't think they're as bad as their reputation lets on, but obviously the first one is the big kahuna in this conversation. You could probably say this about the first one too, but I didn't really feel it with that the way I felt it with this. After a while, it kind of started to feel like this was turning into a slasher movie.
Kind of.
Because it would get to that point where people would start being offed in brutal ways, and for a large portion of the movie from the middle on, it just kind of turns into who's gonna die next and how brutal is it gonna be. And that's pretty much where it goes. There's, you know, I didn't find the characters appealing at all, which really obviously taints the suspense, clearly. If they had not made it out of that hamster ball thing,
you wouldn't have cared.
No difference to me, really. And like I said, that whole romantic thing between Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard is just, so old and played out, and I didn't really. I do. Bryce Dallas Howard is appealing for the most part, and there are movies that she's really great in. Despite the love that movie gets, I thought she was one of the only good things about The Help. But here, it's clear that she has the charm for the character, but the performance still feels a bit flat, I guess you would say. And that, on top of the whole Pratt does not appeal to me thing, this was just...
This was DOA for you.
If it is... What? I don't know.
If it had been anybody else other than Pratt, do you think you would have liked it more?
Depends who the person was.
Well, originally, there was a lot of people that have been, like, considered, like, Garrett Hedlund was considered, and Armie Hammer was considered. And it's funny you mentioned Harrison Ford, because he was actually considered before, like, the very, very early onset.
Yeah, people, yeah, you know, yeah.
The dinosaur scenes are done well, I think.
Yeah, but like I said, though, the really big moments that really do work just kind of feel like slightly altered versions of scenes from the original movie. Which, you know, there's homage and then there's redundancy. So, yeah, for the most part, this wasn't doing it for me. But I think audiences will love it.
Yeah, definitely.
And I'm probably really going to be in a minority here. I'm pretty much counting on it. But I don't hate it or anything. It's, yeah, that's the best I can tell you. Is I'm sure most people are going to love it. And I can see why I can. It just doesn't do it for me.
You like the nods to the original and everything, and like finding the old location again, and
that.
I mean, that was rumored anyway, so it's not really spoiling it. So,
I guess.
I love the ending though. I think the ending is set up really well.
Yeah.
Whether you like the movie or not, the ending is something that you enjoy.
And it's got a good. I mean, you pretty much you can. By the time it comes, you pretty much know what it's gonna be. But
yeah,
the last shot is good too.
I agree.
But you know,
it reminds me of another movie actually.
There, I just, you know, I did try.
I know you did,
but yeah, it just wasn't singing to me. But maybe next time.
I guess we'll see. So that's your AJ's movie reviews this week. Gaming with Ash on Saturday. Sunday, brand new Versus. Oh my god, we're going into the galaxy. The 2-year anniversary of Versus is this week. And next week we have a special Versus coming up that's going to have a special guest. So we're going to have that first and last time. So that should be really cool. Looking forward to that. So Horror Nights content whenever I get some. And of course, tomorrow, Halloween Horror Nights podcast, 9 p.m. if you want to join us. You know the normal crew we bring in, and along with the Horror Nights updaters. So that's coming your way tomorrow. And stay tuned for the rest of the week. We got a lot of wrestling content, Money in the Bank on Sunday, and Raw on Monday with me and Aaron, because Ashley's going to be covering E3. So that's what we've got. And what is your star amount? Because you didn't give that yet.
2.
All right. So ends another edition of AJ's Movie Reviews. And AJ, any parting words?
That's it.